This episode of the Community Workbench podcast is brought to you by yours truly, the realtor Matt Norn of Remax Bell Park Realty. For all of your real estate needs, call me 860-428-6534. Your dreams are my job. The Community Workbench podcast is going to be on location. Join us at the Quiet Corner Sci-Fi and Comic Experience. This event is June 29th from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. at Grill 37 Putnam Road, Pomfret, Connecticut. Hope to see you there. Welcome to the Community Workbench. This is Matt Norn and Kyle Morrissey. We are your hosts of the #1 podcast in my basement. At the bench, we try to repair the sense of community. So every week we bring you small businesses, entrepreneurs, community leaders, charities, and pretty much whoever we feel like talking to. And today we feel like talking to author Justin Margadonna. Hi, Justin.
Hi, Matt. How are you?
Good, and you?
Good. You got my name right. That's
good.
Good.
Has that been one of those names that's like kind of always a thing?
Oh, it's if you look at it phonetically, it's pretty much how it sounds, but people just see the length of it and
give up.
They give up. They give up. Sometimes they think my first name is Marga and then Donna when I give it over the phone.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So you wrote this book, Parallels and Facades, and I am almost done reading it. I'm pretty far through, about 3/4 of the way.
All right. There'll be a test.
So you've all heard me read. Right? It's not my strongest suit, but, I keep doing it, and I actually do love reading. Your book is definitely an easy read for me. The font and the page layout and everything. I feel like it's just an easy book to read. A lot of short stories, or basically all short stories.
Yeah, all short stories. A little bit of poetry, but mostly short stories. I didn't envision it as being short stories. There's a story in there called Shutting Down that I envisioned being the full novel years ago. And then after I started writing that, I just knew it wasn't going anywhere. It was going to be better as a short story. And so I just put it aside. And it was always my goal to write a book. And then a couple of years ago, I finally had the time. Nice. And right after COVID. So I started writing a little here and there at just, it's like building a house. It takes a long time. There's things that, you try to build every day, but there's just times you can't. Mm-hmm. And it took me about 2 years to write it. There were spurts where I write more. I'll go for a month and I'll just go crazy. And then there'll be a month where I hardly look at it. It's just the way I do it. Other people can't do that. The people who write that say, you have to do it every day. Not necessarily. It's just up to the person, like anything in life.
I think that's definitely a process that you would hone your own, process for that.
Correct.
I feel like there are famous books that were decades in the writing stage.
Yeah.
Like some of the classics were long time.
Yeah, a long time. Just like movies. There are certain movies that just take years to make, and then some that get made in 60 days. And,
Yeah.
So it's like anything else. Yeah, so I wrote it, and then the beauty of Amazon.
Okay.
Some people will say, well, it's the big brother of shopping, and you can publish your own material through Amazon, and I can retain my own rights. Fully. So that's been a great thing. I have it at 3 different stores as well. One in Woodstock that it's done quite well at. It's actually sold more at, here's a shout out to Echo Farm.
Echo Farm.
Hey, Bruce. Bruce. Echo Farm in Woodstock. And I've actually sold more books at his place than anywhere else.
Nice.
Physical,
Cool.
outside of Amazon. I also have it in 2 bookstores, and it hasn't done well. I put it in a farm store there's a lot of local artists that contribute.
Yeah.
Their products, and it's been fun. So
those are our people.
They are.
Buy local.
It's
buy
true.
local people.
This is perfect.
It's true. You gotta have Bruce on from Echo Farm.
There you go. Hey, come on down, Bruce.
So it's been great. So there's that. But yeah, like I said, with Amazon, years ago, it was very hard to get something published the traditional way.
Right.
I do have it on Kindle, but honestly, everything I've sold has been through hard copy. No one
Okay.
wants it on Kindle. So, and
Wow.
I've sold more than I ever thought. And I'm working on my second one right now. And again, it's a long, slow process. It's like a marathon.
Yeah.
You just don't wake up and run a marathon.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not like putting a tweet out and oh yeah, I'm done. 150 characters, I'm done. No, it's slow, it's arduous, it's painful, it's irritating. But you do it because you love it. You don't do it for the glory. You really
Yeah.
don't.
Yeah.
You
It's just-
do it because you just love to do it.
Yeah, and it's I don't know. To me, like even with this podcast, it's like we don't really have any huge expectations. We just love it. And I've had some people say, hey, you should really be making more money when you do that. And I'm like,
More money?
any money at all?
More money.
But we just it's just a passion, and if something comes of it, then I love the connections that we all
And that's really what it is. And I think we're lacking connection today.
right.
Yeah.
Today's world, strangely enough, right? There's that irony of lacking connection with all these ways to communicate.
Right.
I mean, we're part of the problem putting a
You-
product on the internet for people to watch it.
Yes,
alone.
you are part of the problem, and I'm contributing to it. Yes, so
But there's a time and a place for the written word, and there's a time and a place for being, one-on-one with somebody or in the presence of the moment. And
Well, plus your book could be part of a book club, which would bring people together.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
there you go.
So-
There you go. A book club, right?
do you think we should start a podcast group?
Club? It would be groupies.
watch.
We don't have a name for community workbench fans, so
Yeah, you need to come up with one.
Oh God!
If I think of something, I'll let you know.
I thought it was just called the community. I thought we were tapping that one.
I guess.
Benchies. I don't know.
Benchies.
Yeah,
there you
that's what I was gonna say. I think it's pretty good.
All right.
Go for some bent cheese.
So yeah, I was telling. This is great. I feel like I'm back in my college radio days.
Oh,
I
okay.
did
You were.
yeah, I did radio for a couple of years after college, and just wasn't my thing. It was my goal, but it just didn't work out. So, but yeah, this is great.
Take us through like your education, your background, kind of.
Yeah, so I grew up in Massachusetts, primarily in Marlborough, Mass, central Metro West Mass, about 20 minutes east of Worcester. And when I was going to school, I went to Curry College in Milton, Mass. If anyone from Curry's listening, hello. And I did college radio there, and that was something I really wanted to do. And I remember I didn't live on campus, so I would commute every Friday night to my shift and work 10 to 2 a.m. And
Wow.
it was just great. I probably had 5 listeners, and I would have the same 5 people call every week for requests. But when you're 18, 19 years old, and back then there was none of,
Right.
the internet really didn't exist.
Yeah.
Right.
And if it did, it was in some very infant stage. It was something that very few people had the chance to do, even at a college radio station. So I did that. I worked at a couple stations, a real small one. I was on air for that. I did production of a morning show in Worcester, and then it just kind of petered away. I started teaching kind of by accident. Never thought I was going to teach. My high school was in need of a permanent sub in a communications course. It was like public speaking and TV production, and I had some of that in my bachelor's. So I'm like, yeah, I'll give it a try. And then here I am, 20 years later. I'm still teaching full time, right? I never meant to go into teaching, but then to teach, and I had to get my master's, and that took 6 years part time.
Yeah.
Because and then when I did it, it was still relatively affordable, not like now. But yeah, I teach middle school now, middle school writing,
Nice.
and yeah, I taught mostly high school most of my time. But when I came back to New England and specifically Connecticut, I was getting middle school interviews.
Oh,
My certificate, because I taught in Missouri for about 10 years, where I lived for a while. And when I came back here, my certification was for also middle school. I'm like, what? Really? So that's all I kept getting with middle school. And this was right after COVID.
yeah.
So honestly, I don't think I could go back to high school. You know, middle
Yeah.
school still has a lot of people like, oh, are you crazy? Middle school? But middle school still has, the kids still have this piece of them that there's still some innocence
Yeah.
and still some curiosity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're not so jaded
Yeah.
as a 17-year-old senior
Right.
that I did it, you know. But yeah, so that's my story. I always wanted to write. I give credit to my third grade teacher, Mrs. Trito from Clara Macy School in Bellingham, Mass.
Oh.
She gave, I remember writing a short story, and it's actually on the back of my book that I mentioned that I realized it's something I wanted to do when I got my classmates to crack up and laugh. And I thought, wow, there's a little power here, right? I had a little
Right.
power trip. And so I continued to write a lot during, through college, through high school, involved in literary magazines in high school, newspaper, college news, high school newspaper. Took a ton of writing courses in college. And, here I am.
Yeah.
And it was always a goal to write a book. And it just kept getting put off and put off and put off. It's one of those things that are like, oh, yeah, I'll do it next year. I'll do it next year. And then the older you get and you see things happen, right? You lose people you love, things happen in your life, and you're like, there might not be a tomorrow.
Right.
I got to do it now. So yeah, there was a lot of dedication to it, even though it's something I love doing. It's hard. But yeah, so I finally did it. So yeah.
Good for you, man. That's awesome. Back to the Amazon thing. Do they just like take a percentage? Of
They do
the
in my
sales?
soul.
There it is.
My soul. No, they take. They get like, well, if it's like a third of every. They get like 30% of every book I sell.
Okay.
But then there's also a printing cost.
Okay.
So I get like 33%.
Yeah.
I get 33, 34% is what I figure out is what I get.
Now,
But it's fine. I know it's like I'm happy to make $1 off it, to be honest.
right. Right.
Yeah.
Now,
know?
I'm just curious because, like, if it's on Amazon and you've done everything through Amazon,
Yeah.
do you have to like purchase it at a higher or like
I don't.
you
I can
like
get author
wholesale? You get
like when I sell it to local businesses like Bruce at Echo Farm in Woodstock.
all right.
Bruce is on and watching.
Bruce, is he there? Is Bruce on? Hey, Bruce. Yeah, I can purchase author copies at a discounted rate.
Yeah.
So
Then you can sell it.
then I can
elsewhere.
sell it for some profit,
Is there a limit to how many of those you can have?
No,
Oh,
there's not.
Yeah, because Amazon's making their cut.
They're making their cut regardless.
Yeah. So it's whether or not you want to hold the inventory.
Correct.
Nice.
Correct. So yeah, there's that.
So
So
it's a pretty good deal.
it is a real good deal, for all the people that, shame Amazon for, stealing,
Right.
local mom and pops away. There are some positives, like anything in life. There's positives. And it gives me a great outlet, I don't have to worry about, going through a traditional publisher that's going to just, give me rejection letter after rejection letter. It gives me a chance to get out there and get better at it,
Yeah. Yeah, it kind of lets you test the market too. You
It
did your-
does.
Your first one, now you're motivated to do your second one.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
yeah.
that's pretty cool.
It is. It's neat. So
Do you feel like Amazon, or I'm sure there's others that help self-publish, have cut into publishing companies?
oh yeah.
Yeah.
I find that hard that they wouldn't have.
Yeah.
I mean, I think they've cut, to be honest, I think they've cut into everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you think about it, it's crazy. You can, I can be at home and like, oh, I didn't pick that up at the store today. I can go on Amazon and get
Yeah.
it the next day,
Yeah.
delivered to my door.
Right.
So it's fascinating, it's awesome, and it's scary.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, unfortunately, yeah, they have cut. But strangely enough, there's a lot of independent bookstores that are thriving now.
Right.
And, and I think because we're so over indulge with electronics and screen time. You know, I think people want their traditional stuff still.
Yeah, to go back to the book.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a family full of readers.
Yeah.
Not just my immediate family, my extended family. And I don't think anyone reads on a Kindle.
Yeah, I hate it. I hate it.
At least not all
It's
the time.
wildly convenient, but it's a different experience.
It
You don't
is.
turn the page.
Yeah.
You don't. I don't know. There's something to be said for like. For me, it's not that I hate reading. It's just an attention span thing.
Yeah.
But like you feel like you're making progress through the book,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And with the Kindle, it's just a number. And
Just a number. And then there's so many. I don't have a Kindle, but I can imagine there are distractions on that.
well, if you get like the regular Kindle, you can only read books.
Okay,
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
nothing.
I don't
Right.
own one. So
But if
I
you
wouldn't
but if
really-
you do it on like an iPad, which you can,
Yeah.
or any of those,
Yeah, you
things,
got this
yeah.
popping
Yeah.
up. and
Right,
that.
yeah. So,
yeah.
but the like original Kindles, yeah, there's nothing else
There's
on
nothing
those.
else on.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's funny because if I wake up in the middle of the night, a lot of times I'll start reading, and my book light is an app on my phone. So I don't use the phone.
Yeah.
But I'll put the phone on my chest to illuminate the book.
It's true. Yeah.
It's like you probably do all that on.
It's crazy though, right? Because there are several stories in this book that I wrote on my phone because I wasn't home and I had a good idea.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, I got to
wanna
get
lose
this
it.
down,
Yeah.
right? Because I sometimes will have my regular writing journal by hand, and sometimes you just get an idea and like, I can't let this go because it's just going to float away. So there are several stories in there that I wrote on my phone, out in public somewhere. And once I started, I couldn't stop. It's like, you get the
Right.
ball rolling. So it's strange. It's like, but to me, it's like a balance in life, in anything. If you don't have a balance,
Yeah.
right? If you're staring at your phone all day long, there's no balance.
Right.
Right.
Oh, and
Yeah.
I've had days where work was just
Yeah.
a ton, and you get off the phone for like dinner with the kids, like your eyes are adjusting to like normal life again. You know what I
And
mean?
your brain
Like,
is
you're
mush and you
trying to-
can barely talk. You're like,
Yeah. Like, with all the communication that you do for home sales and stuff, it was just like on the phone or on the computer, and it's just like your mind's constantly working through screen to screen to screen and like going back and forth with everybody, and it's just like you kind of like wake up for the first time, like at the end of the day you're like, whoa, three-dimensional people.
Yeah,
There's
it's true.
definitely some days like that, and I get the whole thing where I can type faster on my phone than I can anywhere else as far as typing. So like I get when you have an idea, you want to write it down.
Yeah.
You don't
and
use speak to text?
sometimes you do, sometimes.
Yeah.
But like just for like I can use a laptop pretty quickly, but I can't.
I
I'm
watched you type.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not great.
But how fast can you type with that one finger?
It's it's an ongoing. I've definitely gotten better since becoming a realtor because, believe it or not, as a carpenter, you don't use a computer as much.
No, you don't. You don't, right? You don't. But yeah, especially in realty, I can imagine. Think about in the last 20 years how much that
Everything.
industry has changed based on
Yeah.
the internet.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And it's crazy.
yeah, and you get to the closing and you're still going through like a tree of papers.
Yeah, still there.
signatures and stuff. I guess one of my lawyers that we use and we're friends with, he said in it was like early 2000s they had given people like they were laptops or whatever to sign all the papers on digitally.
Yeah.
And they hated it.
Yeah.
And they kept getting that. And it was like a thing done. Like to buy a house, no one wanted it electronic. They wanted papers. So
I
they
agree.
still have it like that to this day.
Yeah, it feels.
They have
It
the hard-
feels.
It's not real.
It's not. It's like, where is my signature going, and who's going
Yeah.
to steal it?
Eventually, we probably won't have a choice, but
Oh, we'll run out of trees.
carbon emission says trees on the up.
This is true. But the government says they're down.
Of course, of course, and you
We don't need to go there.
no, we don't.
Do you have a favorite place you like to write?
Um, it's weird. When I wrote this book, I wrote it in my apartment, in this little corner on this tiny little like antique style desk on my laptop, and it felt just it was like this corner. It was like I was away from the world. No one bothered me. I turned off my phone, turned off everything. I like to write with classical music, so I'll usually have music on.
Mm-hmm.
So that always helps me mentally to get, just to keep writing. I need that at least, but that's my favorite place is to just kind of get into a small physical location. And it will still, where I moved, I still have that now. I still have that same desk, and that's where I do most of the grunt work is I need to get away from everyone.
Yeah.
I might write some stuff, some short stories on the phone, but the final product is always in those like real confined little places.
Yeah, you get in a zone.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. That's
Yep.
pretty
So, yeah. So,
cool. Why don't you give us a little, I don't know, a summary of the book or
Sure.
whatever you want. Like, it's very interesting. It's a very unique book for me. I mean, and this is coming from someone who likes twisted thrillers.
Yeah.
It's like-
I mean, I like twisted stuff too. I grew up reading Stephen King, so
Cool.
There you go.
it's I started really liking short stories after I came across this writer. She's an Indian writer. Her name is Jhumpa Lahiri, and she's actually from Rhode Island.
Okay.
She grew up in Rhode Island, and I came across her book just by accident. And she wrote these short stories about her family's life and her life and some really like just painful things that she went through. And I connected to a lot of it. So the more I read of hers, I started reading a lot of short stories. And when I started writing, things just started coming in like just little batches of thoughts. Whoops. And so it's primarily short stories, but for me, they're all linked. They're linked by the theme of that we all lose things as human beings. We all have loss. And so there's stories in here that deal with death, of course, physical death. There's a story in there that deals with the death of my dad. There's a story that deals with the death of my grandmother. There's stories in there that deal with the death of relationships that you thought would always be there.
Yeah.
And how painful those are.
Mm.
And to me, those are up there with physical death, right? I think when we lose the trust of people that we assume love us and we love them. So there's several stories in there about that theme. And there's stories of loss of the past. Like there's a story in there dealing with going on vacation when I was young up to Maine with my parents and my grandparents, and in those times that we'll never get back.
Yeah.
That nostalgia,
Yeah.
right? That we can never get back. But strangely enough, they're always there with us, but you can never fully get them back. And we so desperately want to get them back.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a story in there of going up to Maine with my grandfather and my parents and my grandma and my brothers, and how we're on the beach, and it's the 4th of July, and we go back because back then we would have to go back to the cottage to watch the Red Sox, right? We couldn't have it on our phone. It didn't exist. So I remember it was like being at Disney World, going back to the house with my dad and my grandfather and watching the Red Sox on this tiny little TV in this cottage we rented. And it was magical. And seeing on July 4th, I remember it was 1983, seeing the Yankees pitch a no-hitter against the Red Sox. And that's
God,
the
we weren't even born yet.
83 in July. I
yeah.
was a month old.
Yeah, I was 10.
Where in Maine?
It was Saco, Maine.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So it was near Ocean Park, Old Orchard.
Yep.
And just seeing that, and that's always stuck with me. And I remember I gave the eulogy at my grandfather's funeral, and I included some of that in his eulogy years ago. I mean, that was back in 2001. And I incorporated that no-hitter
Yeah.
because it was so much part of the story, connecting me with my dad and my grandfather in baseball. It always connected us.
Yeah.
Even with my dad, when we weren't getting along, there was always that baseball
Yeah.
that connected you.
Well, plus the no hitter is less impactful because the core memory is so great, right?
Yes.
So it's now more of a positive
It
than
is.
a negative.
It is, right? A Yankee pitching a no, it was Dave Vergetti, the Yankees pitcher who pitched. I can remember the last out. Wade Boggs was the last out of that game. So there's reasons why we remember those things, right? I mean, I can't remember what I ate for breakfast yesterday, but I can remember. So this book is really short stories of those moments
Yeah.
in our lives that we have lost, but also positives.
Yeah.
There's some ghost stories in there that are somewhat based on truth. And, there's not every story is based on truth. There's bits and pieces that I took and I fabricated it and fictionalized things in there. There are some short stories in there that are very
Very true.
based on truth.
Yeah.
And then some that are little bits of nuggets that I took and just, kind of poured water on it and let the plant grow and see where it took me. So, yeah.
Nice. I mean, speaking of baseball,
That's a great segue, buddy.
It is.
You did it.
the community workbench has we sponsored a little league team, my son's little league team, the Barracudas, and they had their championship game on Saturday, and they ended the season with a awesome 14-2 record. And Brooklyn Little League staff or volunteers, the coaches and the kids, they were amazing to work with and a lot of fun. And I just wanted to give everybody that update, and it'll be one of those memories
Yep.
that Matthew and I will have for forever.
Forever, yeah.
And
Yep.
it's when I think about this book, it's almost like you read it and then you'll need it.
Well, thank you.
It's
Yeah.
one of those things like you could read it now and it might not hit your life that much right now, but like when you do experience loss, you might pick it up again and be like, oh, and it kind of give you that relative
Correct.
material that, and it kind of like make you draw on your own memories of what you're experiencing, that kind of thing.
Absolutely.
That's just my personal take on it.
And it's strange because, before I came here today, obviously I went through it again, because when you're away from it and you're working on something else, there's things you forget about. And you're like, oh, I should really just take a scan through some of these stories. So I remember, and it's strange, even being so close to it 2 years ago, when you're writing it, you forget. And then you're right, you go back to it and you're like, dang, right? That what I wrote about is still like a knife in my gut, right? Because it's like, wow.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Oh, we have doggies.
Yeah, Ricky. That's
It's Ricky and Lucy.
Ricky and Lucy.
So before it goes away, someone said you're part of the Poets at Large.
Yes. Hi, Karen.
Yeah. Yes. And
Yeah.
said you read a lot at open mics.
I do. So when I moved to Woodstock, Karen Warinsky, Karen, I hope I got it right.
Yep.
There's a great group she started here called Poets at Large, and she holds various events in the area, a few every year that are free at Roseland Park. She just had one this past Sunday in the barn, where she always invites local poets that are published, and so they will do some readings, and then she'll always have an open mic.
Okay.
So when I moved here a couple of years ago, excuse me, I don't even remember how I came across it. And I reached out to her and I said, I want to do an open mic. I had never done it before. And it's kind of like, it was a little bit intimidating. And yeah, so I started reading. I read some stuff from this book that are poems. And yeah, so she also holds other events at the Vanilla Bean Cafe during the winter months. So yeah, it's great. So hi, Karen.
Am I crazy, or is she on our list to schedule to be here on the podcast? I thought she reached out, and she's on our list.
I don't know.
We have a
I apologize for not knowing.
we do have a list of people that we are going to schedule, and
Yeah.
it's kind of like one of these things. We kind of like Kyle and I know every Monday we're going to be here at 6, but sometimes for our families to like
Planning can be challenging.
we don't always plan
Yeah.
everything all the way out.
9 out of 10 times it's our fault too.
Yeah, so just in case we try to leave some open Mondays, but down the road we are getting to people. I think I have one more to schedule that had done the pre-recorded podcast before
Yeah.
for a podcast.
We're waiting for Phil. We're waiting to hear back from.
Yeah, and Philip is.
We had to cancel his. So
and
yeah.
he's gonna be. Yeah, we're gonna be rescheduling.
We'll just
Philip Riley.
We'll just blame the scheduler we hired. That.
So I don't know. Maybe Karen. Maybe you'll be here.
So, but yeah, there is a list, and we are getting to people, and it's basically when they reach out, we put them on the list to be scheduled for the next available Monday, and Poets at Large just sounds like a cool thing. So
It is. It's pretty cool.
They want
Susie Santos wants you to read one of your stories.
Susie's in Spain right now.
Whoa,
Yes,
that's
Susie.
cool.
Hi, Susie.
That means in Spain it's got to be midnight.
6 hours ahead,
Yeah.
right, Susie? Yeah.
Wow, she stayed up for it. That's
Susie,
awesome.
Thank you, Susie.
We're gonna ride that one.
I'm gonna
Thank
say
you, first international listener.
That's right.
Community
Oh,
Workbench,
wow.
home of international listeners.
I want to feel this is like one of the most engagements we've had in the live episodes too. So thank you.
Great.
Well, I threaten people to listen. No.
Just got to teach us how to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Self-marketing is something we're not great at.
It's not easy. It's not. It's hard. It's another job in itself.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
But yeah. So Susie.
What does she want him to read?
She just said one of his short
Oh.
stories in
I
there.
don't know.
Do you have a go-to?
Or do you have a poem or a
No,
haiku, perhaps?
no. I don't read a haiku. Ugh.
So in the future, while I don't know if you can answer this while you're looking.
Yeah, go ahead.
I probably wouldn't be able to, but so a lot of authors will read their book so you can purchase it on recording. Is that something that you would aspire to do?
I've thought about doing that. I really have. I probably will, once I'm done with the second one, really look into it.
Yeah,
'Cause-
Matt is for hire for audiobook.
Are you really? Oh, you're,
Yeah, you want
His voice is so
want me to-
soothing.
You want me to stumble through everything?
Maybe choppy at times,
have
or
a
even
great- he has a
words
radio
made up.
voice.
Exactly.
He does.
Yeah, because he doesn't have a TV face.
Radio voice, radio face.
Oh, goodness. I guess this is a fairly short one. This is called Yellow Truck Man. All right.
I'll just
Oh, thanks.
get this out of your way.
Thanks. And you make a good cup of tea, by the way.
Oh, I think you made it. I
Yeah.
boiled the water.
It actually took two of us. I boiled it first, and then you put it back on.
Excellent. All right, let's see. Here we go. Yellow Truck Man. He used to be a friend, a confidant, a reason for some serenity. He was not one to judge, to sneer, to foam, until one day he got down from his yellow truck, and that was the dawn of the end. Pulled me away and stretched his right arm like an elastic, like an arrow yanked backwards. The sounds were loud, speakers shedding bass and treble. She was in the background, lost somewhere during these 10 seconds of slow motion fog. Then he left, and his revision completed, the first draft a millennia ago. Once a beacon of friendship, family, and fun, all withered away in shock, yet constructed in distrust and scars. Some say he now resides on a hill, a hermit to most, except his audience. A new love has fixed herself within his later years. A picture confirms that. The play is now in its final act, a hypocritical portrayal. So yeah, that's about someone.
John Martell was gonna request that one.
Oh,
But Echo Farm wants to talk about Arc cookies. They might sell them.
What, I'm marketing everyone's products here?
That's what we do.
What's going on?
That's the whole point.
Great.
It's fantastic. I'm gonna probably go buy those.
Bruce, yes, the Arc chocolate chip cookies. If I took them out of the bag and brought them in here and said, I just, my little granny made these, they're the best chocolate chip cookies. He sells them. The Arc, it makes them in Woodstock.
Yeah.
I actually saw them at Stop and Shop the other day. They're
Wow.
like, yeah,
They're getting out there.
yeah. So I go in. Bruce knows I go in. Maybe every month or a couple months for my fix. And yeah.
I wouldn't last that long. It'd be like weeks.
Oh, they're ridiculous. I'd be broke if I go in there every week. So there you go. Yeah. So yeah, that's about a story who I lost trust in someone I trusted very, very much. Yeah. So.
Wow.
But there's the stories aren't just about trust. There's like I said, there's physical loss. There's what's the one I wanted to? There's a whole piece in here that this poem was called Listening, and this poem was one I was subbing one day. I wasn't yet certified fully to teach in Connecticut. It was right after COVID, and I'm subbing full time. And the students are just talking about the most ridiculous things in the entire world. So I take out this piece of paper and I just start writing everything down they're saying.
No.
Right? And there's a poem in here called Listening.
Yeah.
And it's all their exact phrases that
Oh my
they
God.
say. And how does that deal with loss? Because I'm thinking at the time, I'm like, oh my goodness. Like, am I just an old grumpy man now? And I'm thinking that there's the loss of like education here. What is happening to these students? Like, what is going on? I must just be old now, right? Because it's called Listening. So there's funny things of losing our youth and realizing there's no way I can connect to what these students are saying anymore. Right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, well, try to go back to the time where you could just run out mom's door, no shoes,
Yeah.
no shirt, no wallet, no ID, no phone, no keys, and just run out and be out there for hours and hours on end.
yeah.
I can't do
exist.
that. Yeah,
It doesn't, and I feel, and
that-
honestly, if it makes me an old grumpy guy, I don't care. I would give anything to just have the kids now experience those days of riding their. I mean, we would just ride bikes for hours during the
Yeah.
summer, go
Yeah.
swimming, just
Yeah.
go play in the woods, and it's some of the best times. There's a story in here right at the beginning that talks about my time growing up in Bellingham, Mass. And how just the neighborhood was such a place of comfort, even in memory now, of camping out, in my backyard with my friends and going out at 1 a.m. and just roaming the neighborhood.
I used to play
I mean,
the golf course the 9-hole golf course that used to be in Bellingham.
yeah,
What the heck is the name of it? It was like across. You know where the Coachman is?
yeah,
Yeah. So it was like I think over there.
yeah.
It was like an
Okay.
executive.
Oh,
I grew
okay.
up in Cumberland in Rhode Island.
Okay,
It's only
yeah.
like one town over.
Yeah.
so,
Yeah,
Yeah.
neat,
Yeah.
Huh.
neat.
And
Yes.
Curry College at 138, right? On 138.
On Route
Milton.
138 near Blue Hill.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know exactly where that is.
And so I tell people these stories. I kind of unleashed my, just everything in this one. There's a lot of personal stuff, and I change names to protect the innocent and the guilty.
We don't do that. You should have given us an alter ego.
So Matt, is there one in there that you've read that you're like,
so I'm not great with names.
this is
believe
your
it or not.
test right now?
Yeah.
Did-
I want to say there was one where it was about a woman kind of fighting with a gravestone.
Yes.
So
The pipe coat, the
raincoat.
raincoat
Yeah.
and the pipe coat dream.
Yeah.
That was based. That was based on, and I still don't know if it's true. It's one of those things like you're like, is that true? Did that happen? Um, I can remember my mom telling me at one point that my grandmother was visiting the cemetery where my grandfather was buried, and that my grandmother saw someone at a grave quite a ways away, like hammering a pipe into the ground, and they were talking into it.
Oh.
And
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my goodness, that's so horrible and so like heartbreaking,
Right.
right? So that's what that story is based on.
And the reason why that one stood out to me was the perspective. Like the author is from afar,
Watching.
talking about this and watching and again, it is heartbreaking to watch something of that nature. And then just it kind of put a lot of like perspective in my mind because I have a lot of family members that visit gravestones and stuff like that, but I don't do that personally. I don't feel like I lost my father when right before I turned 14, and he's not there at that gravestone. He's here.
Correct.
He's around here. So I don't. I've been there when another family member passed away. They were buried close by, and I went and visited. But it's just not. It's not where I see him, and it's kind of interesting to me that there's a lot of people that will make a routine of going to grave sites, and that's all the more power to you. Everybody deals with death in their own way. And
Correct.
I totally get that.
Correct. And it's strange, like you said, with the gravestones, right? Because part of that story, also, when I, a few years ago, when I moved back to the area, there was a cemetery that I would run in.
Oh. It's very peaceful.
And it's strange, like, because some people are like, you run in a cemetery? And I'm like, you'd be surprised, right? It's like, it is so peaceful. And to me, it's not morbid at all. But you would see like gravestones. There was one that would break my heart where it was for every holiday. It was this young girl that had died very, very young. And it was decorated for every holiday with different balloons. And it would break my heart every time I would run by it. Yeah. And then there are gravestones there that are from, the mid 1800s that you think these people have totally forgotten, right?
Mm.
Yeah.
It's just, life is strange.
Yeah.
So I combined that with, right, the pipe hammering into the ground. Yeah. And there are some stories in here that it was very hard to write. I wrote from my grandmother's perspective when she was in assisted living. And it was right when she was going, it was right during COVID. And she had dementia. And I tried to write it from her point of view. Of living in an assisted living home, because my grandmother was always so full of energy and was just on top of everything. And during COVID, they came in, they tested her for being positive, and these big guys, literally, it was the National Guard. They came in these big, like, white puffy coats, and they whisked her away. Wow. To a hospital in Worcester. And it was just, so there's a story in here that was probably the hardest one to write, because I didn't want it to be kind of, I really tried to get into my grandmother's head of what it was like for her going through dementia, because she would still know us, but then there were times where she didn't know us.
Right.
And then one day she's whisked away, right,
wow.
by this guy in this giant white suit.
Yeah.
And so that was probably that was one of the last stories I wrote. And to me, that was gut-wrenching to write. But I think sometimes, and a lot of writers would tell you this, some of the hardest things sometimes to write are also the most effective, right? If it's too easy to write, sometimes it's not good.
Right.
Yeah.
it's not good, right? Sometimes, like being a carpenter or whatever, sometimes the hardest things to build tend to be the best pieces.
Right. Yeah.
Now, do you feel like mentally that helped you work through that, and that's why you
It
kind of
did.
sort of came
It
to
did
that?
because I was real close to my grandmother.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was. Yeah, it and plus I wasn't living here yet. Then I was out of state, so saying goodbye to her over an iPhone. I mean, think about that. I mean,
so
it's
much
crazy.
harder.
It's
Yeah.
just it's crazy.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was hard, but it's also very therapeutic. There are a lot of stories in here that are very therapeutic.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Writing in general is a great release.
it is.
of
It
that.
is.
So.
And that's why I try to tell my students. I really try to tell them to, write what you know. A lot of people would say, no, don't write what you know. Absolutely write what you know, because that's your heart, right?
Yeah.
Don't try to write something you don't know about, because your audience right away will know immediately you're full of crap, right? Right? If
I don't know. We talk about a lot of things we don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I guess they think we're full of crap. This has been the most engaging episode thus far, though. So. We'll take it.
Do you have your students read this book?
it's strange. There are students. There are a few that have bought it. There are a few that I had just had a student at the end of this year bring it in and wanted me to sign it.
That's
wow.
cool.
So that's really cool because it's
Can you sign that one?
yeah, I will.
I was
sign-
gonna. Oh
I'll
yeah.
sign
I was
it.
gonna
Yeah.
have him do it before he left.
Yeah,
Sure.
and that is very humbling to have a student buy it and then bring it in, on the last day of school and say, "Hey, Mr. Margadonna, can you sign this for me?"
Oh,
I mean, it's really
That's
cool.
neat. Yeah.
that's cool.
and it's strange because a lot of the stories, I think, especially in middle school, I mean, I have a lot of students that read a lot, and it warms my heart when I see them reading a book
Right.
during study because they love to do it.
Yeah.
And it's those students that will buy it and be like, yeah. And I'm like, I always wonder what they think of it though, right? Because a lot of
Right.
times, at the end of the year, then I don't see them again, or
Yeah.
it's you just. So, because I think a lot of the stories are very adult in nature. It's like they're stories that I've experienced as an adult, or have written about many, many years later
With
of those
an adult
experiences.
perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it's great when I see them purchase it, and then write a review on Amazon. It's like, whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a friend that wrote a children's book, and he was saying the reviews on Amazon is like essentially buying the book
Yeah.
over and over again, because
Yeah.
that's how much, like, the more reviews you get,
It's true.
It like directly correlates to sales.
It
Oh,
does.
wow.
So if anyone has bought it and you didn't write a review, write a review, please.
I guess you got to sign my book, and I got to write a review.
But no, I seriously, and I tell people, I'm like, I want you to be honest in your reviews, and I really do mean that.
Yeah.
Because please, don't give me a load of garbage, please. Please tell me if there's something you didn't like, because I truly do want to know that,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
And sometimes people will, but
Yeah.
and I do want to give a shout out to my proofreader, Joanne, who was a parent of a student I had in St. Louis, who I keep in contact with now. She's fabulous, and I do dedicate it. I mention her name at the front of the book. She was my first ever official proofreader, and she was honest, and I needed that, and because sometimes the editing process is the hardest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you're so close to it. It's like your children. It's like, oh, they're perfect.
Yeah.
And then then someone else sees your kid and they're like, no, they're not perfect.
But that's the proofreader's job. I hated proofreading in high school.
Yeah.
Hated it.
Yeah.
But
it
that's
really is.
their
And I tell
like-
my own kids that in school. I'm like, guys, when you proofread something in class, if you're just giving them a load of fluff, you're not helping them in any way.
right.
Yeah, and like to me, the biggest thing, even like when you build stuff, you're staring at it for day after day.
Yeah.
And then when even non-carpenters come in to critique your work, you're like, oh yeah, that is, you know what I mean? Because it's just fresh eyes.
It
I feel
is.
like that's like the best thing you can have on your work is just a fresh pair of eyes that weren't staring at, like as creators, we kind of
Yeah.
we'll get into a certain zone and we'll just focus on, one thing or certain things. And we kind of turn a blind eye sometimes
You do.
to stuff. I remember I had built a pergola and had it spray painted by a painter and then assembled the whole thing after it was painted. And then, of course, for the finish coat, I had to do it by brush and stuff. And it was early on in my career. And the homeowner came out and I was like, is there anything I missed? They were like, they just like started pointing stuff out. I was like, yeah, I'm so glad I asked you. It's like,
And at the moment, if we were honest with ourselves, we're like, oh, really? Come on. Man. But you need those eyes.
It's tough to hear sometimes, but it's like,
It's essential.
You don't, for me, I never want to put a finished product or charge somebody for a finished
Correct.
product that's not finished.
Absolutely.
Or that has, obvious, and it's, I know now it was obvious to her that those were, things that she noticed like right away. And so, you don't want a defect or an unfinished thing like staring at them. They're gonna have a pergola for 20 years and they're staring at. He never finished that part.
What was that guy's
whole
name?
joint.
And you're always connected to it.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
You're always connected. So yeah. And sometimes when I write, sometimes I'll let it sit and not look at it for a month. And that, in some way, is a fresh
Kinda
pair
gives
of
you
eyes.
a fresh pair of eyes. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's something I tell my students, and they don't. Today's world is immediate. Okay, I tweeted it. It's out. It's done.
Right.
And it's just not the way everything should be.
Yeah. For people on Facebook, there are edit buttons for your posts.
Yes,
I often use it.
there are differences in the theirs and yours. I try not to be that person. Oh, so yeah.
Yeah, I get it. No, that's a good advice with the fresh pair of eyes and having somebody that can really tell you what they really think about it and stuff. And I didn't realize Google or is it Amazon reviews?
Yeah, well, at least book review. Well, actually, I think it's a lot of things. Yeah, and there, which I guess for a book it would be hard, but you can actually, as a reviewer, make money for video reviews. And every time somebody buys a product and they look at the video review that you posted, there's like compensation. Yeah.
Can we upload this to Amazon reviews?
Just upload the podcast.
Oh, you'll be looking like 2 weeks later. It's still uploading. Right?
Yeah. With 0 people watching. So what does the future hold for you for writing or for teaching?
Like I said, teaching. I love teaching. I'll the way the world is, I'll probably be teaching till I'm 95, and I just drop in the classroom one day. What's wrong with Mr. Margadonna? Why is he drooling on his desk?
Read my book about loss.
What a way to go out, the irony. But yeah, I love teaching. I love I do love it. It's very challenging, but things we love are challenging, and it does keep me young in a way. The kids do keep you young. So I'm lucky to teach something I love, right? I mean, it's because it's honestly, it's really not a job a lot of the time. Yeah, it's hard, and it's a lot of time, but to be able to teach something you love is totally different. Because I think of my own teachers that I've had, whether they were professors or elementary teachers, you always know when the teacher loves something they're teaching. You know, right? You as your audience,
and vice versa if they hate it.
Oh yeah, you're like, what is he saying? Is he grunting? So yeah, it's and like I said, I'm in the middle of my second one, and I try to just write what I love and what I would want to read. And I think anyone who's that creates something, right? You always, when you're creating it, you always look at it with, okay, would I like this? I think you're really, even if it's something that's not your style or, but yeah. So that's what the future holds, and I'm hoping to have it done and out around Christmas time. We'll see.
Any teasers? For
I honestly, I don't give any, I really don't, especially like in today's world, right? Where because I'm really afraid of having ideas
yeah.
taken and titles.
I can assure you, Matt's book would not be nearly as good as yours.
No, I don't plan on writing.
But not,
I
but
do
not
like
you
crea-
guys. But just like I would know.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah, I know. It's out there.
I'm thinking of other.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh, yeah.
Whereas so I don't even tell my family anything. Like they'll ask, and I might have told a few of them the title.
Well, then you feel like you have to like live up to it too.
Correct, that
Yeah,
too,
that's
right?
something.
It's like, oh well, it's about this, and then they go into it with expectations.
Well, he already said by Christmas, so.
Yeah, for Santa to put. But yeah, so that I will tell you. I'm going to try to have it done at the end of the summer, and then have it sent to my proofreader, and we'll see.
Well, let us know when it's
Yeah.
done and out there to buy at
Okay.
Echo Farm. I assume you'll.
Echo Farm.
Yeah.
Hey, Bruce. Good cookies. He even gives free samples.
Oh.
If you go in, yes, there's a big glass dome with the free samples of the Arc cookies.
Nice.
So yeah. Well, this has been awesome. I don't know how much time we have left. If it's
Oh, we
over.
don't really time them.
No.
We just go and
But-
until I appreciate you coming on. This has been a blast. It's been really cool to like read the book and then talk to the author about it. That's been such a rewarding experience to me personally.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
And I thank
Truly.
you. And yeah, I look forward to more of your work coming out.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll definitely get up to that farm and eat some cookies.
Yeah, we have no problem eating dessert.
Just show up.
Yep.
Don't buy anything. Just split the dome up and eat all the cookies.
And as usual tonight, I was drinking Connecticut Uncommon California Common Solidarity Ale, a collab with Anchor of the San Francisco Co-op, Black Pond Brews. Very good brew. Thank you, guys. Thanks, everyone, for watching. And the Community Workbench family is promoting the Be the One campaign. It was started by the American Legion in efforts to stop veteran suicide. For more details, visit betheone.org. Join us Monday, June 24th, when we talk to legendary painter Ed Peach, owner of Gold Standard Painting. As always, buy local, hire local, dine local, volunteer local, donate local, read local. Have great days, everybody.